Picture the cruelest fate that could befall a musician, losing the very sense that defines their art. Now picture that musician refusing to stop, refusing to give up. Instead, they create some of the most powerful, revolutionary music the world has ever heard, while completely deaf. Ludwig van Beethoven didn't just overcome deafness. He transformed it into fury, into passion, into music so intense it still shakes concert halls 200 years later. He took everything Mozart and Haydn had built and exploded it into something bigger, wilder, and more human. This is the story of a man who heard silence and refused to accept it. Ludwig van Beethoven was born in December 1770 in Bonn, Germany. From the very beginning, his life was hard. His father, Johann, was a court musician and a violent alcoholic. When Johann realized his son had musical talent, he saw an opportunity. Another Mozart, another child prodigy who could make the family rich. So Johann forced young Ludwig to practice for hours every day. He would wake him in the middle of the night and drag him to the keyboard, beating him when he made mistakes. Neighbors reported hearing a small boy weeping at the piano. This wasn't education, it was abuse. But here's the thing about Beethoven. He was stubborn, brutally, unbreakably stubborn. His father's cruelty didn't break him. It hardened him. It taught him that the world was harsh, that you had to fight for everything, and that nobody was going to save you. By his early teens, Beethoven was supporting his family financially. He became the man of the house while still a boy. In 1787, at age 16, Beethoven traveled to Vienna, the music capital of Europe, hoping to study with Mozart. He played for Mozart, who was impressed but distracted by his own problems. Beethoven had to return to Bonn when his mother fell ill. She died of tuberculosis shortly after. Beethoven would later say his mother was the only person who truly loved him. By 1792, Beethoven moved to Vienna permanently. He studied briefly with Haydn, though the two didn't get along. Haydn found Beethoven arrogant and difficult. But Beethoven was difficult because he had a point to prove. He wasn't going to be just another composer. He was going to be the composer. And for a while, everything went according to plan. In Vienna, Beethoven made a name for himself, not as a composer first, but as a pianist. And not just any pianist, the most ferocious, passionate pianist anyone had ever seen. While other pianists played prettily for aristocrats, Beethoven attacked the piano. He broke strings. He played so hard that hammers flew off. He improvised with such intensity that audiences sat in stunned silence. One contemporary described his playing as a volcano in eruption. The Viennese aristocracy loved him. They had never seen anyone like this, a rough, moody genius who didn't bow and scrape, but demanded respect. Princes and counts became his patrons, giving him money and freedom to compose. And compose he did. His early works, his first 2 symphonies, his piano sonatas, his string quartets, showed mastery of classical form. But there was something else there too. An edge, an intensity, a sense that something was boiling beneath the surface. Then came the crisis that would define his life. Around 1798, Beethoven started noticing something terrifying. His hearing was failing. At first, it was just ringing in his ears, then difficulty hearing high notes. Then conversations became muffled. By 1801, he could barely hear at all. For any person, this would be devastating. For a musician, it was a death sentence. In 1802, Beethoven wrote a letter to his brothers, now called the Heiligenstadt Testament, that he never sent. In it, he confessed that he had contemplated suicide. He wrote, "I would have ended my life. It was only my art that held me back." But then something remarkable happened. Beethoven made a choice. He decided that if the world was going to take away his hearing, he would respond with defiance. He would compose music that was bigger, bolder, and more powerful than anything that had come before. He would not go quietly into silence. In 1804, Beethoven completed his Symphony No. 3, the Eroica, the Heroic Symphony. It was nearly twice as long as any symphony written before it. It was stormy, dramatic, and emotionally overwhelming. It didn't follow the polite rules of classical music. It broke them. This was the beginning of Beethoven's middle period, his revolutionary period, and the birth of Romantic music. His Symphony No. 5 opened with the most famous 4 notes in music history. Da-da-da-dum. Beethoven called it fate knocking at the door. The entire symphony is built from this simple motif, developing it into a journey from darkness to triumph. His Symphony No. 6, the Pastoral, painted pictures of nature and sound, thunderstorms, flowing brooks, birdsong. Music had never been this descriptive before. His Symphony No. 9, completed in 1824, was the culmination of everything he'd built. It was massive, over an hour long. And in the final movement, Beethoven did something no one had ever done in a symphony. He added singers. A full choir and soloists singing Schiller's Ode to Joy. By the time he composed the Ninth Symphony, Beethoven was completely deaf. He conducted the premiere himself, but he couldn't hear the orchestra or the audience. When the performance ended, he stood facing the orchestra, unaware that the crowd behind him was erupting in applause. A soloist had to turn him around so he could see the audience cheering. But here's the miracle. Beethoven composed all of this, the Fifth, the Sixth, the Ninth, the late string quartets, the piano sonatas, while deaf. How? He heard the music in his mind. His understanding of sound, harmony, and structure was so complete that he didn't need his ears anymore. He could imagine complex orchestrations, layered harmonies, and emotional arcs entirely in his head. His late string quartets, composed in his final years, are considered some of the most profound music ever written. They're introspective, strange, sometimes almost uncomfortable. The sound of a man exploring the depths of human emotion in total silence. Beethoven's personal life was as chaotic as his music. He never married, though he fell in love repeatedly. He wrote passionate letters to a woman he called his immortal beloved. Historians still debate who she was. He was a terrible guardian to his nephew Karl, whom he took custody of after his brother's death. Beethoven was controlling and overbearing, and Karl eventually attempted suicide to escape him. This devastated Beethoven, who finally realized he had become what he hated most, his father. In his final years, Beethoven was sick, isolated, and often broke despite his fame. His deafness had cut him off from the world. He communicated through conversation books where people wrote questions, and he responded verbally or in writing. On March 26, 1827, during a thunderstorm, Ludwig van Beethoven died at age 56. Legend says that at the moment of his death, there was a crack of thunder and a flash of lightning. Beethoven opened his eyes, raised his fist to the sky in one final gesture of defiance, and died. Over 20,000 people attended his funeral in Vienna. The city mourned him as they had mourned no other musician. They finally understood what they had lost. Ludwig van Beethoven's life was marked by pain, isolation, and loss. He was abused as a child. He lost his hearing at the height of his powers. He never found lasting love. He died believing himself a failure as a guardian and uncle. But when faced with the ultimate defeat, a musician losing his hearing, Beethoven responded with the greatest music ever written. He transformed his suffering into symphonies that still move millions. He took the elegant classical tradition of Mozart and Haydn and exploded it into something raw, emotional, and deeply human. Beethoven proved that limitations don't define you. Your response to them does. He couldn't hear the Ninth Symphony, but the world has been hearing it for 200 years. He composed in silence and created sound that will never die. His final symphony ends with the words, "All people become brothers." It's a message of hope from a man who had every reason to despair. A message of connection from a man trapped in silence. a message of joy from a man who knew profound suffering. That is the power of Beethoven. That is the power of defiance. That is the power of art. If Beethoven's story inspired you, please like and subscribe for more deep dives into the lives of history's greatest artists. Comment below, what's your favorite Beethoven piece? See you next time.